My Lady, Episode 3. As Jane begins, she reads texts in an attempt to break Guildford's Ethian curse. Guildford declines to discuss the first time he transformed when Jane asks him to. Guildford says he would prefer get rid of the curse completely than try to tame it, despite Jane's desire for him to try and control it. Jane attempts an incantation magic shortly before dawn in the hopes of preventing Guildford from transforming into a horse, but the spell is unsuccessful. Disappointed, Jane spends her day trying to figure out how she might assist her husband. At that moment, she discovers a ransom note outside the house demanding Susanna, her maid, give up her life. Jane searches Guildford's family home in the hopes of discovering gold or silver coins, but she is unsuccessful. Jane is left waiting for Guildford to revert to his human form by the housemaid, who also serves as Guildford's caregiver. However, when Lord Dudley finds out that the king has passed away, he requests the jail warden to bring Stanley, his son. The guards prevent Bess from meeting Edward when she arrives. When she tries to talk to Seymour, he ignores her and resumes his intercourse with Mary. Telling Mary he possesses Edward's will, he lies. In the interim, he commands 2 royal guards to murder Guildford and Jane. Telling Dudley that the will is missing, Stanley requests that he ask Frances for assistance. Frances informs Stanley that she is marrying Catherine to Duke Leicester and does not have time for this. When Guildford transforms back into a human that evening, Jane begs him to pay the ransom in order to spare Susanna. Guildford declines, claiming that his family is impoverished and cannot afford it. Jane is unhappy because her marriage to him was solely for financial gain. In an attempt to preserve Susanna, Jane chooses to remove the silver cutlery from the home. Guildford goes with her as she is ready to venture into the forests alone. Mary informs the royal court that King Edward is not doing well and makes a suggestion that she would be open to taking on the role of queen in the near future. When Bess requests to meet her brother, she informs her that Edward has already passed away after jumping out of the window. While Mary can't contain her excitement at becoming queen, Bess is devastated. As they travel to the woods to save Susanna, Jane and Guildford are still at odds with one another. Jane wins the couple's sword fight when she successfully straddles Guildford while brandishing 2 knives. When they get to the location where Susanna is hiding, their passionate relationship comes to an end. Jane learns that Susanna was not abducted, rather, she sent the ransom note in an attempt to get money from Jane, who cherished her. Susanna claims that Jane never treated her like a friend and only exploited her for her own purposes when Jane confronts her and calls her out for being a terrible friend. Jane apologizes to her after realizing how egotistical she had been toward her in the past. In the interim, Seymour drafts a fictitious will to take the place of King Edward's. Frances regrets marrying Catherine to her uncle at the same time. Margaret considers her mother disgusting and makes fun of her for marrying off Catherine and Jane like commodities in order to get money. Stanley uses some sex to try to divert Frances, and it succeeds. The royal guards ambush Jane and Guildford as they return home. Together, the couple attacks the guards and flees back to the castle. Jane and Guildford start dating in the woods due to the stress of the experience. Jane and Guildford try to have sex in the house while carrying on with their make-out session. Jane eventually realizes that they are going to divorce, so she tells Guildford that she is unable to have sex with him. Later that evening, Guildford returns to Jane's chamber and shares with her the story of his first transformation into a horse. He tells Jane that he can't talk about the horrible event and begs her to leave him alone because his mother was killed that day. Jane feels sorry for Guildford and swears never to question him about it. Guildford transforms into a horse and returns to the stable before daybreak. After having too much to drink the previous evening, Duke Leicester is dozing off in the dining hall the following morning. In order to prevent her sister from having sex with their great-uncle, Margaret suffocates the Duke while he is sleeping.